Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Right now, as you've probably seen in the year-to-date headline news, there is a massive, and I mean absolutely massive logistical and political crisis dominating the cross-border conversation between Washington and Ottawa. So today we're doing a real deep dive into all the research surrounding the Ontario-Michigan waste corridor. We're going to look at how cutting-edge mobile AI is acting as a sentient bridge to take what is essentially a physical, geopolitical liability and completely transform it into a digital financial asset. Basically, we are looking at a total state change in how global supply chains operate. Let's get into it. We got to start with just a staggering physical reality here. Every single year, literally 3.46 million tons of municipal solid waste, or MSW, gets exported and shipped across the U.S. border into Michigan landfills from Ontario, Canada. Think about that for a second. To put that into perspective, you are looking at a never-ending bunker-to-bumper convoy of heavy trucks moving physical matter day in and day out across international lines. And this stat brilliantly illustrates the sheer scale of that corridor. Ontario's exported trash accounts for a massive 14.35% of all the waste that is buried in Michigan's landfills. It is a profound cross-border dependency, you guys. But as we're about to see, this long-standing arrangement is hurtling toward a massive regulatory brick wall. So here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll look at the geopolitical waste crisis. Second, the Section 338 tariff threat. Third, building the Sentient Bridge. Fourth, the next-gen AI stock. And finally, number 5, dematerializing matter into money. Starting with part 1, the geopolitical waste crisis, the physics and finances of the corridor. All right, so what is the actual underlying driver of this entire corridor? In a word, extreme financial arbitrage. Ontario is staring down a massive landfill capacity cliff by 2034, which is driving local Greater Toronto Area tipping fees up to a whopping $189.86 per ton. Meanwhile, over in Michigan, the current rate is just 36 cents. Now, Governor Gretchen Whitmer is actively proposing a hike to $5 to try and curb these imports. But honestly, even at $5, that massive cost difference guarantees this cross-border trash pipeline is going to keep flowing. And treating these political actions purely as regulatory weather, this physical logjam really compounded with the whole January 1st, 2026 Blue Box collapse. That's when commercial recycling streams were suddenly forced into private channels. To manage this sudden influx, Ontario Premier Doug Ford introduced Bill 5, basically bypassing standard environmental assessments just to fast-track domestic landfill expansions and hedge against potential border closures. The physical system is literally bursting at the seams. Which brings us to part 2, the Section 338 tariff threat, when garbage becomes a geopolitical target. So as a lot of you know from tracking the news, 2026 has been just a wildly volatile year for Washington-Ottawa trade relations. Following the joint reviews of CISMA and USMCA, a severe 50% duty under Section 338 was signed by Donald Trump. And in just 22 days from now, on August 19th, this brutal 50% tariff is going to slam into Canadian wood exports. This effectively threatens to completely bankrupt the traditional waste logistics that rely on this corridor. It is a real game changer. Let's move on to part 3, building the Sentient Bridge from matter to data. To actually survive this crazy 50% trade wall, the industry is deploying something from the agent905wood.com source files, known as the Sentient Bridge. The thesis here is pretty radical, actually. Instead of moving physical garbage, we use edge computing directly at the construction site to convert chaotic physical wood into highly structured, tariff-exempt data before it ever even hits the highway. It basically forms a sentient bridge between chaotic construction waste and the high-purity requirements of the biocarbon market.
That takes us to part 4, the next-gen AI stack, the technology powering the gate.
Now, it's absolutely vital to note the tech progression here. While the 905 Wood Digital Refinery successfully runs today on the Pixel 10 Pro to execute edge inference, their forward architecture is where things get truly fascinating. The roadmap relies on operationalizing the upcoming Google Pixel 11 Pro, running Android 17 and using heavily optimized LightArt AI stack features. This next-generation engine processes compliance decisions right at the edge, making it wildly faster and far cheaper per unit. And the 905 Wood Digital Refinery workflow is honestly seamless. In under 500 milliseconds, half a second, guys, the Edge AI actually classifies the wood. If a load is a bit ambiguous, falling into a 70 to 85% amber band, it just escalates to a multimodal cloud console for a visual fallacy guard check. Finally, the Digital Refinery UI/UX cleanly outputs a unified PDF documentation package, handling everything from a request for quote to verification and compliance by permanently locking the GPS data via the phone's secure Titan element. So why does a half-second AI scan actually matter so much in the real world? Well, because it catches invisible hazards, like toxic arsenic in chemically treated wood, right there at the bin. By stopping hazardous waste at the source, it actively lowers the risk profile, which means transport insurance premiums for carriers actually drop. It's a massive win-win. And finally, part 5, dematerializing matter into money, the output payoff. Upon validation, the system spits out a unified PDF package that basically hits 4 critical compliance and financial functions all at once. It creates a USMC Shield Certificate of Origin, proving the wood is an exempt commodity and legally bypassing that 50% tariff. It also automatically generates electronic environmental manifests, a zero-levy report card, and a Puro.Earth carbon registry entry. The financial incentive for construction contractors to adopt this tech is just massive. Looking at the numbers, in Ontario, an unverified mixed waste load gets hit with a $60 per ton circle levy penalty. But if you have that AI-verified clean wood PDF, that provincial penalty drops all the way down to just $5 per ton. And that levy avoidance, it is not just some abstract accounting trick. It translates to an immediate hard dollar savings of $1,053.23 for every single 144-yard walking floor mothership trailer that leaves a job site. That is massive cost avoidance on the balance sheet for these companies. But the ultimate value layer here is the carbon dividend. By verifying the wood's high purity for the pyrogenic biocarbon market, essentially turning it into biochar, each load generates a baseline book value of $2,721 in Puro.Earth carbon removal credits. And with spot highs potentially reaching over $7,000? By operationalizing this tech, 95 Wood effectively secures Ontario's industrial leadership in the global circular bioeconomy. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a thought that really forces us to reconsider global supply chains from the ground up. If an AI-equipped smartphone can bypass a 50% geopolitical trade wall, redirect millions of tons of municipal solid waste, and literally spin construction trash into carbon credits, what else in our physical world is just waiting to be dematerialized? Thanks for joining me today, and keep looking for the data hidden inside the matter. Catch you next time.